Admitting anger as a natural emotion is the first step towards mastering it. You see, society has conditioned us to hide our anger, to bury it beneath layers of politeness and decorum. But anger, like any other emotion, is part of your human experience. It's not the enemy, it's the signal. To reject it is to reject a part of your own nature. And when you reject a part of yourself, you lose the power to control it. Think about it. The more you suppress, the more the anger grows, lurking in the shadows of your mind, waiting for the right moment to explode. In the words of Marcus Aurelius, the best way to avenge yourself is to not be like that. The only way to truly understand anger, to truly control it, is to face it head on, to look it in the eye and say, "I see you, I understand you, but you do not control me." When you deny anger, you deny your own power. Nietzsche once said, "He who fights with monsters should be careful lest he thereby become a monster." When we try to fight anger, it consumes us, makes us something we're not. But when we embrace it, understand it, and recognize it as a part of our emotional spectrum, we regain control. Anger becomes not a force that drives us toward destruction, but a tool that can fuel growth. So instead of pushing it down, let it rise, examine it, and learn from it. Understand that it's here to teach you something important. It's a messenger, not an enemy. And when you learn to master this emotion, you learn to master yourself. But this is just the beginning. There's much more to come. The path to emotional mastery requires understanding, patience, and the willingness to look deep within. If you're ready to dive deeper into this journey, stay with me. What follows will change everything. Pay attention to the physical signs of anger. That tightness in your chest, the clenching of your fists, the heat rising in your face. These are not just random sensations. They are the body's way of telling you that something is brewing inside, something powerful, something that threatens to spill over. And yet, it's not just the anger itself that you need to focus on. It's the moment before it takes full control. That brief flicker, that whisper from within, is your body's attempt to warn you you are approaching the edge. Marcus Aurelius understood this well. He spoke of the importance of controlling the internal, because when the internal is neglected, the external chaos becomes inevitable. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one, he said. The same goes for your emotions. Instead of allowing them to control you, control the moment before they become a storm. Those physical sensations are the beginning of the battle. Recognize them for what they are. Your body's signal that your mind is about to be overtaken. Nietzsche, with his provocative wisdom, might say that he who cannot obey himself will be controlled by others. And when you ignore your body's signals, you allow anger to overtake your thoughts, your actions, your very being. You surrender to the chaos. But here's the truth. You have a choice in that moment. The tension in your body is not a sign of weakness. It is an opportunity. The body, in its raw honesty, tells you when you are losing control, when your emotions are about to betray you. The question is, will you listen? Will you step back and say, "I see you, anger, but I will not let you define me"? In that brief pause, you are gifted with the power to reclaim your calm, to take a breath, to ground yourself, to choose a different path. And in that choice, you find your true strength. This is where mastery begins. This is the art of emotional control. And this is just the beginning. Do not react immediately. When everything inside is boiling, give yourself time, 5 minutes of silence. In this silence, you will discover something powerful, something that most people never find, the space between stimulus and reaction. It's in this space that true mastery lies. The instinct is to lash out, to respond in the heat of the moment. But let me ask you this. When has haste ever brought clarity? When has rushing ever led to wisdom? No, it is in the pause. the silence, that we find the ability to choose how to respond, not react. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, reminds us that the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. And the quality of your thoughts depends on the space between your emotions and your response. That is where true freedom resides. When your mind is clouded with anger, the immediate reaction will always be impulsive, driven by raw emotion, not reason. In those moments, the mind seeks instant release, the body screams for action. But it's precisely in these moments that you must remember, the mind is a tool, not a servant to emotion. Nietzsche said, "The man who fights monsters should be careful lest he thereby become a monster." How often do we become the monster in our own stories? How often do we act out of anger only to regret it later? The answer is simple: too often. But what if, instead of rushing headfirst into battle, you chose to pause? What if you allowed that heat to rise, but didn't let it overtake you? 5 minutes of stillness, 5 minutes of simply breathing. In that time, you can observe the rise of your anger, watch it unfold, but not be consumed by it. You step outside the storm, and in that space, you gain a perspective few ever achieve. You are not your emotions. You are the one who observes them, who can choose how to move forward. In those 5 minutes, give yourself permission to step away from the chaos. Reconnect with your breath. Your breath is the rhythm of life itself, a reminder that you are not in control of the external, but you can always control your inner state. When you master this, you will find that your responses are not driven by the storms inside you, but by your calm decision-making. This is where power begins, in the moment you choose to not react. And as we move forward, I promise you this: the art of emotional control is a journey, and it starts with one small act of silence. Stay with me. There's more to discover. Realize this: anger is a mirror of your inner state. It reflects not the actions of others, but the turbulence within you. Too often we point the finger outward, blaming people, situations, the world itself for the way we feel. But let me share something profound with you. The way you respond to the world is entirely within your control. The external triggers may be unavoidable, but how you react, that is a choice. Marcus Aurelius, with his Stoic wisdom, spoke of the importance of cultivating inner peace. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Anger arises from within, from thoughts that have been left unchecked. It's a reflection of unresolved emotions, of beliefs that fester and grow if not acknowledged. When you feel anger rise, it's not the world that has wronged you, it is your inner world that has been disturbed. Nietzsche too had his own powerful insight into this. He said, "He who fights with monsters should be careful lest he thereby become a monster." In other words, the more you fight the external, the more you feed the chaos within. When you give your anger to others, when you allow it to control your response to them, you only become a prisoner to your own emotions. But if you can look inward, if you can understand that your anger is a product of your own mind, then you hold the key to breaking free. What if I told you that the next time anger stirs within you, you could pause and ask, what within me is unsettled? What does this moment reveal about my own beliefs or fears? Instead of blaming the other person, you would be able to see the root of the anger, not as something that needs to be eradicated, but something that needs to be understood. You have the power to change the script. Every time you choose not to let anger control you, you rewrite the story of who you are. The moment you recognize that anger is simply a reflection of your internal world, you take back your power. No one else can make you angry unless you allow it. When you take full responsibility for your reactions, you free yourself from the grip of your emotions. Anger at its core is not just an emotion, it is a mask. Beneath it often lies something far more vulnerable: pain, hurt, fear. It is the defense mechanism that shields you from the raw truth of what you are truly feeling. You see, anger often serves as the loudest, most visible reaction to a deeper, quieter wound. And until you uncover what lies beneath, the anger will continue to control you, like a puppet master pulling the strings. Think of it this way. When you feel that spark of anger rise within you, it's an invitation to look closer, to look beneath the surface. This is not a moment to simply react. This is the moment to question what is hidden beneath the rage, what unmet need, what past hurt, what unacknowledged fear is lurking there. Could it be the feeling of abandonment that you've carried since childhood, the injustice you've never resolved, the fear of being vulnerable and exposed? Marcus Aurelius, in his Pursuit of Wisdom, urged us to consider the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. And those thoughts, those underlying currents of past experiences, of unmet desires, often color the way we experience the present. The anger you feel may not be about what is happening right now at all. It could be a reflection of something much older, much deeper. If you don't examine this, if you don't seek what lies beneath, you remain imprisoned by it. Nietzsche, too, warns us of the consequences of leaving our emotions unchecked. Whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process, he does not become a monster. When you react from a place of unresolved pain or fear, you lose yourself in that very emotion, becoming something you don't want to be. The anger will only grow, and you will become a slave to it, rather than the master of your emotions. So let me tell you this: when anger strikes, pause. Go beyond the immediate explosion of emotion. Dig deeper. Ask yourself, what am I really afraid of? What need inside of me is going unmet? Anger becomes manageable only when you start to see it for what it is: a call to tend to your deeper wounds. You have the power to choose to stop allowing your anger to be the mask for everything else. In doing so, you regain control. The process is not easy. It requires self-reflection, courage, and patience. But every time you uncover the true root of your anger, you strip away a layer of the false self that is driven by unaddressed pain. This is where true healing begins. And as you learn to navigate these depths, you will find a freedom you never thought possible. This journey into the depths of your emotions, into the heart of your anger, is just the beginning. Stay with me, for there is much more to explore, and each layer you uncover will bring you closer to your own power. When anger rises within, it often feels like a force outside of you, something that takes control. But in reality, it is a creation of the mind, a concoction of thoughts that feed the flames. You might find yourself thinking, "They don't respect me," or "I don't deserve this." These thoughts are the fuel that ignites the fire. But here's the truth. These thoughts don't just reflect the situation, they create the situation. They are the architects of your emotional experience, and in their grip, you become a prisoner of your own beliefs. Marcus Aurelius, in his Stoic wisdom, warned us about the power of our thoughts. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. This is not just a noble thought, but a strategic one. Your thoughts are not neutral. They are not mere reactions to the world. They are powerful forces that shape how you experience life. When you think, "They don't respect me," you are not just observing an external reality. You are casting a judgment on it, and in doing so, you distort your perception, feeding your anger with a narrative that justifies it. Nietzsche, too, challenged the very foundation of our beliefs, asking us to reconsider the narratives we tell ourselves. "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how," he said. When you hold on to the thought that you are not respected or that you don't deserve better, you anchor your identity in a place of victimhood. This why, this belief, drives the how of your emotional experience. The more you cling to this belief, the more you are bound to it. and the more your anger becomes a natural response. But what if you chose to challenge these thoughts? What if, instead of feeding the narrative of disrespect and injustice, you questioned it? What if you realized that the story you are telling yourself is only that, a story? It is the mind's response to a situation, not the situation itself. The moment you stop identifying with these thoughts, you regain your power. You no longer allow them to be the fuel that drives your emotions. The key to mastering your anger is in mastering your thoughts. The moment you recognize that your anger is not an external force but a direct result of your thinking, you take back control. When you find yourself thinking, "I don't deserve this," pause. Recognize that this thought is the seed of your anger, and instead of letting it grow, question it. Is it true? Is it serving you? You have the power to transform your emotional experience, not by changing the world around you, but by changing the story you tell yourself about it. The external world can be chaotic, unjust, and difficult, but the world inside you, that is yours to command. As you continue on this journey, remember, every thought you entertain shapes the way you experience the world. Choose wisely. The path to emotional freedom lies not in controlling the external world, but in mastering the world within. Keep watching, for the next steps will reveal how to wield this power even more effectively. In the heat of anger, there's a moment, a brief, fragile moment, where you are presented with a choice. It's as if the universe itself pauses, waiting for you to decide how to react. And in that moment, your inner dialogue will determine your fate. The words you speak to yourself in these moments can either deepen your anger or dissolve it. This is where true power lies, in the ability to shift your internal narrative. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, often reminded himself that the mind adapts and converts to its own purposes the obstacle to our acting. In other words, the challenge you face and the anger you feel is not an enemy, it is an opportunity for growth. But this growth depends entirely on what you choose to tell yourself. Instead of surrendering to the swelling tides of rage, try speaking to yourself with compassion, with wisdom. Say, "I can handle this. It's not the end of the world." Nietzsche, too, spoke of the strength that comes from embracing struggle, from becoming stronger through challenges. "What does not kill me makes me stronger," he famously said. When you take a moment to pause and redirect your inner voice from anger to understanding, you are stepping into this higher form of strength. You are not suppressing your feelings. You are learning how to navigate them, how to use them to forge your character. In psychology, this practice is called cognitive reframing. It's the act of changing your perspective to transform the emotional weight of a situation. It's not about denying your feelings or pretending they don't exist. It's about recognizing that you have a choice in how you interpret the situation. By telling yourself, "This is manageable, I can choose how to respond," you break the cycle of reactive anger. You disarm the emotion, giving yourself the space to act with clarity, not chaos. This inner dialogue is your greatest ally. It allows you to move from victimhood to empowerment. Think of it as an internal armor, one forged not in the fire of external conflict, but in the conscious decision to master your emotional response. When you practice speaking to yourself like this, consistently, you rewire your mind. You stop seeing the world as a place full of threats, and instead, you begin to see it as a landscape of challenges to be met with calm resolve. As you move forward in this journey, remember that every moment of anger is an opportunity to choose the words that will shape your reality. Will you continue to feed the flame, or will you extinguish it with the water of wisdom? The power lies within you. And this is just the beginning. Keep watching, because the next steps will show you how to wield this newfound strength even more profoundly. In moments of fury, when the world seems to collapse into a storm of emotions, There lies a simple yet profound act that can be the key to your mastery, the act of stepping away. It may sound counterintuitive, even passive, but in reality, it's one of the most powerful tools you have in your arsenal. Imagine for a moment the words of Marcus Aurelius echoing in your mind. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The ability to step back is a conscious decision to assert control, not over the external chaos, but over the internal storm that rages within you. It's in this very pause that your true strength is revealed. Think about it. How often do we allow ourselves to become swept away by the current of emotion, propelled by the need to act now, to strike back, to make a point, to react to the provocation? Nietzsche, in his exploration of human nature, warned us against acting impulsively. He called it a slave morality, where we are slaves to our emotions, driven by the whims of our impulses. But what if you could break free from this trap? What if, in the face of anger, you could ask yourself for a moment's reprieve? By requesting space, whether it's a simple step away from the situation or the courage to take a mental break, you give yourself the most valuable thing: time. Time to reflect, time to breathe, time to process the underlying causes of your anger, which are often not as clear in the heat of the moment. Psychologically speaking, this break gives you the opportunity to tap into your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for higher-order thinking, logic, and impulse control. The amygdala, which governs emotional reactions, wants you to react immediately, but the prefrontal cortex can intervene if you give it time. By stepping away, you interrupt the automatic emotional response and open yourself to reflection. It's a tactic that turns an emotional outburst into an opportunity for self-awareness and growth. In those moments of pause, you are not running away from the issue, but reclaiming your agency. You're choosing to return with clarity, armed with a calm mind and an understanding of your own feelings. This is what separates those who are at the mercy of their emotions from those who truly own them. It's not about suppressing anger, but about letting it pass, like a storm in the sky, until you can return to it from a place of strength and perspective. This practice of taking space is one of the most radical acts of self-control you can master. It shifts the dynamics from reacting to responding, from impulsivity to wisdom. In every pause, you create a moment of power, a space where you are not defined by your emotions, but by your ability to choose your response. And here, in this act of stepping away, lies the essence of true freedom. The freedom to act, not from a place of hurt or resentment, but from a place of thoughtful clarity. It's the space where your mind finds peace and your soul finds direction. Keep watching, because as you master this practice, you'll discover even deeper layers of power within yourself. The journey has only just begun. In the heat of the moment, when anger clouds your judgment, there is a question that must echo in your mind, louder than the fury itself. What do I truly seek from this situation? It's easy to fall prey to the impulse to react, to let the wave of emotions surge through you, compelling you to strike back, to assert yourself, to win. But in those fleeting moments, before the storm fully consumes you, there's power in asking yourself that simple question. You see, this is not just a question about the external situation. It's about the deeper, often hidden motivations that lie within you. The ancient philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." And here, in this moment of anger, your thoughts are at the root of your potential suffering or liberation. The question is not merely how you feel, but why you feel. If you're seeking justice, that is, a righteous response to something that truly violates your values or rights, then your anger has a clear, perhaps noble direction. It's a force that, when channeled properly, can lead you to assert boundaries, protect what's yours, and call out wrongs in the world. But this too requires a delicate balance. Even the pursuit of justice, if driven by unchecked anger, can spiral into a vortex of bitterness and frustration. However, there is a darker, more insidious side to anger, and this is where the true power of self-awareness lies. Ask yourself, if your goal is not justice but to hurt, to belittle, to make someone feel the way you feel, then you've crossed into a dangerous territory. This is not a righteous anger. It is the manipulation of emotions, a desire to twist the situation in your favor, to use your rage as a weapon. In the words of Nietzsche, he who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster. When anger becomes a tool of manipulation, we lose our own integrity. The line between defending ourselves and becoming the very thing we despise becomes dangerously blurred. Psychologically speaking, this type of anger is not about the other person or the situation. It's about a deep-seated need for control or power. It stems from insecurity, a need to prove our worth, to dominate the narrative. It's a destructive force that, in the end, consumes both the person wielding it and the one it's aimed at. But here's the key. Awareness is your power. When you pause and ask yourself this question, you reclaim the narrative. You stop being swept away by the currents of your emotions, and instead, you step into the driver's seat. You gain the clarity to discern whether your anger is coming from a place of justice, or if perhaps it's a sign of something deeper, fear, hurt, or a desire for control. In that moment of self-reflection, you hold the key to either healing or destruction. The choice is yours. The true art of anger management is not about suppressing the emotion, but understanding its source, its purpose, and its impact. So, next time you feel that rush of heat, remember, what is my goal here? Is it healing or is it manipulation? Is it a call for justice or a desire to wound? The answer will guide you toward a path of strength, not just for the moment, but for your deeper journey of growth and mastery. As you contemplate this question, understand that this is not a one-time exercise, but a practice, a lifelong commitment to mastering your emotions and ultimately yourself. Keep watching, because the next step in this journey will deepen your understanding even further. There is a subtle power in surrender, in letting go of the relentless need to win. Anger, at its core, often rises from the desire to prove something, to assert that I am right, to enforce your version of truth, to outlast or outsmart the other. But here lies the paradox. The more you seek victory, the more you feed the very emotions that drive you into conflict. The more you fight to be right, the more you lose yourself in the storm of your own mind until nothing remains but a raging fire of pride, ego, and a desperate need for validation. As Marcus Aurelius wisely observed, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. When you obsess over proving your rightness, your thoughts, and therefore your soul, become clouded with defensiveness, with judgment, with the belief that the world must conform to your perception of reality. It is a weight that drags you down, poisoning your capacity for clarity, understanding, and peace. You are no longer engaging with the situation. You are battling a phantom, the need to dominate, to show superiority, to win. The key to breaking free from this cycle is not to fight harder, but to release the need to win at all. Imagine the freedom of stepping outside this endless tug of war. Picture a scenario where your value does not hinge on being right. What would it feel like to simply exist without the constant pressure of having to outsmart or outlast the other? Nietzsche warned, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." When your sense of self is not tied to being the victor, when your purpose is no longer about dominance, you open the door to a deeper, more profound form of strength. You begin to see that peace does not come from triumph over others, but from triumph over your own desires to control, to manipulate, to fight. This is the freedom that comes when you choose not to win, but to understand. Psychologically, the need to win is often rooted in an underlying insecurity, a fear of being overlooked, unworthy, unseen. By releasing the need for victory, you allow yourself to be whole, to accept that your worth is not defined by who wins the argument or who holds the moral high ground. It's rooted in the inner knowing that in the grand scheme, your peace and self-respect are worth far more than the fleeting satisfaction of being right. This shift in perspective is profound. When you stop reacting to everything as a battle, the intensity of your anger softens. It no longer holds power over you because you are no longer feeding it. The desire to prove yourself fades, leaving space for wisdom, patience, and a deeper understanding of the situation at hand. So, let go of the need to win. Let go of the internal war that you've been fighting, often for no other reason than to appease your wounded ego. In doing so, you reclaim the calm, the clarity, and the strength that only comes when you free yourself from the chains of conflict. Have you ever noticed how certain triggers seem to spark the same old reaction in you, time and time again? The same frustration, the same irritation, bubbling up from within as if on cue. You might convince yourself that it's the other person, the situation, that is to blame for your reaction. But what if the true root lies within you, in the expectations, the mental patterns, and the assumptions you carry? This is where the real work begins. As Marcus Aurelius wisely put it, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. When you repeatedly react to the same situation with irritation or anger, it's a signal, a flashing light begging you to look deeper. This isn't merely about the event at hand. It's about the expectations you've set, the stories you've told yourself about how the world should behave. It's about your inner world, your assumptions, your habitual ways of thinking that constantly create these emotional storms. Each time you react to the same thing in the same way, you reinforce that mental and emotional pattern. It's almost as if you've created a script for how life should unfold. And when reality doesn't follow that script, you feel wronged, agitated, and disappointed. But the truth is far more complex. By expecting the world to conform to your desires, you set yourself up for constant dissatisfaction. He who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster, Nietzsche warned. We often fight against our own internal monsters, our expectations, our ideas of fairness, our need for control. The real question then isn't how to change the situation or the other person. It's about re-examining the foundation of your own responses. What are the underlying beliefs and expectations that fuel your frustration? Are they even real, or are they just outdated scripts, conditioned patterns from a past version of yourself that no longer serve you? This is where true power lies, in realizing that you are not a slave to your habitual responses. You have the ability to question them, to adjust your expectations, to choose a different path when faced with the same old trigger. To quote the philosopher, "Things are not bad in themselves, but we judge them so." It's in this moment of reflection that you realize the irritation is not the fault of the world around you. It's the result of the lens through which you see it. By adjusting your expectations, by reshaping the mental framework through which you interpret life's events, you shift the entire dynamic. The world does not need to change for you to find peace. You must change the lens through which you view it. When you do this, the habitual irritation loses its power over you. You free yourself from the cycle of reaction and step into a space of conscious choice. This is not a simple shift. It requires awareness, self-compassion, and courage. But it is within your power to transform these triggers into moments of insight. Moments where you break free from the patterns that bind you and step into a new way of being. And with this transformation comes a freedom far greater than any fleeting victory over an external circumstance. As you continue this journey, remember, the true challenge is not what others do to you, but how you respond. Control your expectations, and you control your inner peace. And with that, you unlock the key to deeper understanding and true emotional freedom. Keep watching, because what comes next will help you solidify this shift into lasting change. The moment you realize that we are all, without exception, deeply imperfect, you unlock a quiet yet profound liberation. For so much of the frustration we experience in life arises from a single fundamental expectation, the demand for perfection, perfection from others, perfection from ourselves. We construct ideals in our minds of how things should be, how people ought to behave, how we must succeed. And when those ideals shatter, as they inevitably will, the inevitable response is anger. Anger at the imperfection of the world, anger at the imperfection of others, but most poignantly, anger at the imperfection of ourselves. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor who lived through the chaos of leadership and battle, understood this truth deeply. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. In every failure, in every moment of imperfection, there is the opportunity to learn, to grow, to adapt. And this is the key to inner peace. The anger you feel is not the fault of others. It is your own expectation that life should be different than it is. When you relinquish the need for perfection, when you accept both your own flaws and the flaws of the world around you, you open the door to something much more valuable: grace. Nietzsche, with his raw and often unforgiving philosophy, reminds us that perfection is an illusion, a construct built upon fear of failure. Become who you are, he said, not who you think you should be. The truth is, by rejecting the very idea of perfection, you transcend the cycle of disappointment and frustration. You embrace the reality of the present moment with all its imperfections, and in doing so, you begin to flow with life rather than fighting it. This is not to suggest that we stop striving for betterment. We continue to improve, yes, but we do so from a place of self-acceptance, not from the need to prove our worth through flawless execution. By accepting imperfection, you free yourself from the constant need for validation or the constant pressure to be better. And in this freedom, you find a quiet peace. It is the peace of knowing that nothing is wrong with you, with the world, or with life itself, simply because it is not perfect. What does it feel like to release this weight, this constant striving for an impossible ideal? It is a softening, a lightness that comes with recognizing that imperfection is not a flaw to be corrected, but a natural part of existence. This acceptance changes everything. It allows you to meet life as it is, messy, imperfect, and yet beautiful in its chaos. As you continue through this journey, remember this truth: perfection is not the goal, peace is. And in that peace, you will find the strength to move through the world with an unshakable grace, free from the chains of unrealistic expectations. So, let go of the myth of perfection. Embrace imperfection, and you will feel your anger, your frustration, and your inner turmoil begin to dissolve. When we accept imperfection, we begin to truly live, not in the shadows of expectation, but in the light of reality. Keep watching, because this shift will lead you to a place of peace and understanding that will transform the way you approach every situation from here on out. As we close this journey, remember, true power lies not in perfection, but in acceptance of ourselves, of others, and of the world as it is. Embrace your imperfections and watch as they transform into your greatest strength. Keep moving forward with this newfound understanding, and you will see life with a clarity that cuts through all anger and frustration. Stay strong, stay aware, and remember the path to peace begins within you.